Hi everyone, Hayden here. Many of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I just thought I'd share quickly before introducing our guest today. For years, Carly, my wife, and I had dreams of working in developing countries with orphans and widows and their families and contributing to the ministries that were doing things like that. And we also dreamed of adopting internationally. Unfortunately, Carly's health and the financial crisis wiping us out left our dreams high and dry, and we actually buried them as they were too hard and too painful to think about. Then one day, Carly saw a post from a friend of hers on Facebook who had adopted 5 children internationally herself and is a huge advocate for orphans. The post really grabbed Carly's attention, and that's where our journey began to change. And so 1 year on now, Carly's health is the best it's been in years, and we've been able to leave work and begin to dig up our dreams that God planted on our hearts all those years ago. So with that, today I'd like to introduce you to the person who inspired us to join Isagenix, as we believe that this is a real tool that God is using right now. So with that, Deanna, hi, thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
Hey, can we just start by you giving us a bit of your backstory and the reason why or how you got involved with Isagenix?
Well, first, I love what you were saying about Carly and I being friends online because we were. And I remember us Skyping for years, even before I found Isagenix, talking about, children and our concerns for, the global orphan crisis. So it was such a nice surprise when we connected. But I found Isagenix. I am a mom of 5 kids, and it really, I have 3 from Africa, 1 from Ukraine, and 1 from Guatemala, 2 by birth. So I have 7 children altogether. But it was really, I have to really talk about my son, Alec. Our business had tanked, so financially we weren't doing so well. And it was during this time in around 2011 when we were called to go and adopt this beautiful little boy in Ukraine who was labeled invalid at birth and really had no hope. He had been in the same orphanage for 5.5 years, the same 4 walls. He was HIV positive, and we call it an unplanned adoption because we actually did not want to go because we just felt like financially we were in a really tough time. But we prayed on it, and it was really supernatural because in this moment, I remember saying, "Dear Lord, this is a bad time for me. We can't do this." And I really felt a strong presence of the Lord speaking to me and saying, "This may be a bad time for you in the natural, but I am telling you, this is the perfect time. You have to trust me and go." So it was very scary. It was a faith walk because we already had 6 children. We're struggling economically. I mean, we had very little money, and we went to adopt this boy by raising funds from donations from friends. We were advocates for adoption, so people helped us to go, and just really by friends giving us money and finding money from it was unbelievable. When we said no, when we said yes, it was as if it was like manna from heaven. It just came. So we went to adopt him. And then when we got to the Ukraine to adopt him, and the judge said, "Is there anything you want to say, Mrs. Falchuk?" I said, "Well, I just want to thank the orphanage for taking such great care of him." And then the judge said, "Okay, your adoption has been approved." And then at that point I was thrilled, but the social worker from the region came over to my facilitator and said, "I'm really happy that your client is so happy, but I need to tell you that had she waited, we were just about to move Alec, who was 5.5, from the baby home he had been in all of his life to an internat where children had been known to be dead within 6 months due to rampant abuse and neglect." And at that point, I felt such a strong confirmation that our going to adopt him was the right thing to do. And I was so grateful. But we brought him home, and things got worse. Like financially, we couldn't even eat. We were like borrowing money. It was just crazy. And we were eating expired food that people would give us. We were just doing whatever we could, and we were in debt. We ignore phone calls from debt collector. I mean, it was bad. Our house was going into foreclosure. And one day, I remember sitting, I started to research good foods during this time that I was eating bad foods, because I think it was a survival mechanism, but I realized that I didn't adopt these children for them to live like this. And again, in prayer, I was just calling out to God. One day I needed to buy my son a pair of shoes. And I sat in a parking lot and sobbed, crying, shaking, my hands sweating because I couldn't afford a pair of shoes. And I said one of those prayers that was from the solar plexus. It was so deep, and I was just in the car by myself. And I remember the message that I sent to the Lord. I was like, I will stay in this place. I will stay in the desert. I will go anywhere for you. But I do not believe that you are the God that leaves your people in the desert, or it would have been written that way in your word. You've delivered your people into the promised land. You've taken people out of the valley onto the mountaintop. And I am begging you to honor your word, to take care of the orphan and the widows. We have 5 of them. If not for me, for my children. And I was just, even to repeat it, it's so emotional for me. And it was within days that I found out about Isagenix. And I didn't like network marketing in the past, but I could not forget my prayer, because it was one of those things that was almost cathartic. When I prayed it, it felt right, because my words expressed how I felt, and I was just pleading with God. And so I looked at it seriously, and I was terrified because I told the woman, because I was so downtrodden, that I didn't think I knew 2 people that would do this, but I also knew that this perhaps was the only opportunity. And if this was from the Lord, I wasn't going to just push it aside. I was going to try anything that I felt came toward me at that point after that prayer. So I dove into it, and then realized that the compensation plan combined with the products were so perfect for what my network was, which was a network of people involved in adoption, orphan care, and mission work. That was and of course there's branches outside of that with people from all walks of life, but the majority was that. And I was passionate about this. So when I saw my kids starting to thrive physically, when I started as a caregiver who had been so exhausted from taking care of 7 children, especially broke with the extra stress, I was thriving. My friends started to thrive, and financially my life was turned around dramatically. I earned $100,000 in 6 months from sharing this. I started a group called Adoptogenics, and I cast a vision. I saw the vision immediately. I said, it's for healthy and prosperous forever families, because I realized that families that had adopted, been involved in orphan care, oftentimes were struggling financially. And I wanted to be one of these people that taught people how to fish, not just give them a fish. I wanted to teach them how to be able to provide for those families, because these people had the heart to go out and help people. So our team, myself and my friend Carolyn Tweetmeyer, in the first year became the number 3 and number 4 top fastest growing businesses in Isagenix, and qualified for President's Quest, which is just for the top 5 businesses. And the Lord also told me at the first celebration, I was sitting there by myself looking around at all of these tables, and he said, I want you to create 100 orphan loving millionaires. And at first, actually, I had to shake off I was like, because I said to myself, I don't know if a lot of my Christian friends are going to like the sound of orphan loving millionaires, because some of them don't have what I call this poverty gospel, where they are like afraid to really believe that the Lord will shower them with the treasures of heaven in order for them to give back. But it was a word from God, and it's happening. We're starting to see our teams making 6 figures, several people making 6 figures, people making money. The stories are amazing. And the one thing that I just really is so strong on my heart that God taught me. So Alec was labeled invalid. He was left in an orphanage basically to die. Yes, people were taking care of him, but ultimately, if he had moved on to another place, nobody was going to come to save him. So this child God sent somebody from the ends of the earth to be his solution when he was there in quiet desperation. And had we not adopted him, there would be no way we would have found our own treasure. And now this invalid child who was discarded is basically the poster child, or the inspiration for now what is almost 10,000 associates in my team alone, who also represent children. So we must have, combined with the families, at least like 20,000 people that have come from that one act of my going, no, Lord, not now, not now. The one invalid child has impacted so many people. We would never have found our treasure had we not extended ourselves and stretched ourselves into uncomfortable places to save his life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, you touched on the fact that you made $100,000 in 6 months. How has that progressed from there?
Well, it's unbelievable. I mean, I am now earning, I'm a 7-star executive, at Golden Circle executive, which is cycling, I mean, around 200 times a week, which is approximately $500,000 a year.
In how long?
In 2 years. My husband was working 2 jobs, one job making $36,000 a year, 40 hours a week, another job making $20,000 a year to provide for a family of 9. And it was really, really tough. I mean, we were, if we can do it, anybody can do it. I know you hear that, it sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, all I knew, the only difference for me is that I made a decision not to say, well, maybe it'll happen for me. I was like, give me the instruction manual and I will apply it. If you're saying I need to go and talk to people, I'll talk to people. If you say, you know, I'm a product of the product. I've used every single product in the product line. I wasn't going to leave any penny untouched. I was the type of person who would look for quarters in old wallets and in cushions in order to be able to buy a gallon of milk for my family. Of course, if they tell me I can make $250 by going Crystal Manager in 30 days, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was a decision.
Yeah. Okay, so how has your new reality, I mean, goodness me, $500,000 a year, how's that been able to impact your involvement with the adoption community?
Well, the thing is it's freed me up to be able to spend so much time advocating for orphans. And I like the way the Lord has created this way for me to advocate, because the lessons that we've all learned, number one, is even if we're helping these families just to provide for their families, that's honoring God. If it's for them to pay for their groceries, the children that they've gone to the ends of the earth to adopt, for them to be able to feel more comfortable right there, that's honoring God. But what they do, because they're so predisposed to want to give, they all end up giving to other people who want to adopt. They give to charities. So what we've seen, I mean, we have a couple of stories. I mean, one family just recently brought home 2 children that were left in dying rooms in China, and we're so grateful due to the money that they are making now with Isagenix that really helped them to get there. And on top of that, I was able to throw thousands of dollars into her adoption fund, which I wouldn't have been able to do. Yeah. And then you know, one of our executives, Carolyn Tweetmeyer, was able to really do a lot of orphan work and advocacy, even for women and children in Guatemala. She has some programs in Africa too, mainly for HIV children and for children with severe special needs. My girlfriend Tracy, her son passed away, special needs child that she adopted. And in their time of grief, they have cycles coming, which means residual income coming in for them. And then on top of that, it's just that we can imagine all of the projects that we can do. I mean, my kids, even just, I mean, simple things like this. My kids, we were at church last week, and they were trying to get the Compassion International children adopted, and normally we'd have to really kind of explain to them, we've got 5 kids that we adopted, we're not going to take on a monthly thing, but I let them choose a child to sponsor for like $30-something a month each. And these are like, you know, I mean, it's an honor and a blessing to be able to do this when we couldn't in the past, you know. So and then we're also considering, we just have to get this straightened up, starting an actual adoption fund rather than just, you know, kind of giving out of our own pockets, having something there for our actual team members who are adopting. So we've been able to give back and help people a lot more than when we were trying to sell T-shirts and have garage sales. Nothing wrong with that, but we can make a lot more. If you know you can make $5,000 in 5 weeks, and adoptions like, I mean, imagine I made $100,000 in 6 months. How many adoptions could that have been?
Yeah, no, that's really good. Well, I mean, that's incredible, Deanna. Thank you so much for telling your story on that. I think we'll just really quickly finish on, are there any other ministry areas that you've seen Isagenix impact?
Well, I mean, it's great for missionaries on the field. Because what I've seen is that, you know, missionaries have to ask a lot for fundraising and get contributors and, you know, monthly pledges and all that, and it's very difficult. So if they're able to kind of have their own money and or set something up where the people who normally would fund them are also getting their vitamins and their, you know, their supplements and their shakes and all of that through their account, it can help them exponentially. And that's what we have. We have some missionaries in our group so that if, like, today somebody else enrolls over here, like my friend Keith just enrolled another person. He's a photographer in Raleigh, Durham, but he's a strong Christian man. And the money from that, the points from that person would roll up to somebody who I know who is helping teenagers in Ukraine. And then the person above her is helping people in Somalia. So it's like it kind of rolls up to people. So having an account and actually, you know, having a support team, if you're thinking of going on the mission field, I highly recommend starting to build something, you know, now. And Carolyn Tweetmeyer will tell you that she was told that it takes like at least 2 years to kind of build the type of support that she would have needed to go. And she was able to go within 9 months of starting Isagenix and bring an entire family with 15 kids to Guatemala from the United States.
That's awesome. As I said, this is the story that inspired us to get involved in Isagenix, and it's completely changed our lives, physically and financially, and that's why I wanted to get your story down for other people who have dreams to hit the mission field or to adopt them, or whatever it is that God's called them to do. And I really see this as a vehicle, residual income, the ability to be where God wants you to be without, you know, worrying about where that support comes from. So thanks heaps for your story. Thanks for your daily support of us over here in New Zealand. And,
We love you guys.
And we'll keep in touch, and we'll have more videos for everyone coming up, eh?
Absolutely, anytime.
Thanks heaps, Deanna. Catch you later. Bye now.
Bye.